Hi, welcome to this first session of Penchant Social that I've recorded for some time now since leaving Canada. I'm now back in Scotland. I've put a little bit of makeup on to give myself a pilly-wally look. Distinct lack of sunshine here, but it's quite nice today. I'm pleased and relieved to say. So I hope you like my Emily in Paris look. It's a confession that I've been watching it from beginning to end, and I don't know what it is. I think it's gorgeous clothes and the way of life, which is completely a betrayal of the way Parisians live, I think. But I do enjoy it. Anyway, so trivia aside, there's much to tell you about what's been going on with me, and more importantly, what's happening in my life with respect to family, friends, clinicians, and I guess what my outlook is for next year, my hopes for next year are, especially in the current climate. So I'll try and keep this short as possible because I know I do have a tendency to talk too much. So please bear with me. So I left Canada on the 19th of August and spent 5 weeks with my gorgeous cousin and my fabulous family in Belgium. And to go from Canada to them in Belgium was just such an easy transition because the acceptance of the transgender community in Canada, I've written about it and been on the radio and spoken extensively about how wonderful it is. And coming to Belgium are equally as accepting and embracing is probably a better word to use now, not accepting. I think we all get it that the world in general is accepting, but I would say now we're in this state of embracing, and I felt so gorgeous being over there and just being myself there. So that was fabulous, and then eventually made my way back to Scotland on the 25th of September. My gosh, what a journey. So anyway, came into my apartment. I have to be frank with you, I've only unpacked the boxes which I need to. I'm not intending to stay, but will stay long enough to do what I need to do in terms of family matters in Scotland are concerned. So arrived back and been in Scotland now for 6 weeks, and I just naturally feel a distinct difference between Canada, Belgium and being in Scotland. I don't feel as comfortable in Scotland, and I'm saying that, you know, and I've said it before, I've given up all my shame. I don't harbour any views or thoughts anymore. I express them. I think it's important that I do, but I have to be honest and say I don't feel comfortable in Scotland, although it's fine, and at the end of the day, as I've always said, if you express love, you will get love back in return. But just generally, it just feels different. That's all. And I did have my first encounter with a difficulty. And when you think I've been living my life of authenticity now since August last year, it's quite remarkable that I go all of this time in Canada and Belgium and get nothing, and then I come back to Scotland, and it was a really unfortunate event, but nevertheless I will just briefly touch upon it because I was in an electrical store wanting to buy a product, and as you know, my voice hasn't changed despite my numerous efforts, although I do think it is getting better when I do my Kundalini chanting, but that's about 4 o'clock in the morning, so don't tend to do much recording then. but I know my voice is a giveaway. It's a dead giveaway, and went into this electrical store and queued up and got to the service counter, and there was an elderly guy behind the counter, God bless him. And as soon as I started speaking, you could see his eyebrows perk up and knew who he was talking to. And I needed further assistance, and he turned to a colleague and said, "This chap." And I have to tell you, my heart melted. My heart absolutely melted. If after all of that time, never having had that before, it was quite a moment for me, and one in which I have to tell you, my heart melted, and you had to steel yourself, gather yourself to go forward. But I said to the person he spoke with, I said, "Listen, I can't do this. I need to leave the shop immediately." So I got in my car and I sat there, and I did a phone call I had to make, which was to the sexual health clinic in Edinburgh, and got through to a dear receptionist. She knew who I was. And I took the opportunity to explain my situation, and she was like a guardian angel sitting on my shoulder and really straightened me out in my thinking around one view, and it could be one misguided view, makes not a ha'porth of difference to the way you should continue to behave. So I reflected on that for a few minutes and went back in the store, and I asked to speak to the manager. And I spoke to the manager and said, "Listen, I don't want to get that gentleman into any trouble, any bother, but just because somebody speaks with a deeper voice, to do what he did wasn't appropriate." Anyway, so during that, he came over to me and just profusely apologized. And I mean, he was a gorgeous guy. It was such a shame, and I must admit, I think I felt more shame than he did for just feeling the way I did. And I think being aware and being conscious of yourself is so important. Anyway, so we had a small conversation outside, and he's a lovely guy. So I came home and I wrote him a thank you card for his kindness. And isn't that a strange situation where you go from one state to another? And I took it in and I gave it to him, and we had a further conversation, and we left, I would say, as friends. And and it's true what the receptionist said at the health clinic. You know, it was just a moment of misguided speech that caused him to do it. But I think the thing is, you know, you've got to forgive. You've got to forgive and move on. Otherwise, as the saying goes, it's like a snake bite. It's not the bite itself that harms you. It's the venom that just festers away and courses through your veins. So, you know, I just took the view to nip it in the bud, talk to him, and as I say, the card and the conversation which follows were gorgeous. But I think there's a lesson there, and I certainly reflect upon it for some while, that you've got to forgive. You can't go around, and I see so many mails and messages from girls being bitter, resentful, angry, anxious, fearful, doubtful, all of those things, and all they do is harm you, the individual, and you've got to let them just go, because carrying that stuff around with you is not helpful, and it's just generally harmful to your well-being. So I just thought that's a lovely little story to open with. Having an open heart, having a big heart, and having the ability to be aware and be ready to forgive, because in this instance, that gorgeous gentleman didn't mean to be hurtful to him. He had no idea how it was going to affect me, and as I say, I just don't think he meant it. So all's well that ended well in that regard. So back to family matters. So since I've been back, been working through separation with my ex-wife, and selling the house and breaking up the house. So, I mean, that's been a difficult time, but it was an inevitable outcome. So I suppose you're able to get yourself ready for that. But emotionally, it can be quite challenging, especially, you know, coming back and trying to start up two businesses and having that going on is it's quite a toll. And I guess a lot of girls who are transitioning later in life will also have that to contend with. So you know, I can only say that you can only do what you emotionally are able to do. And I think, you know, everything begins with a thought, and the mind-body connection, doing a lot of work on that for my businesses, for my coaching business, but it plays into very much this world. And it was because of our world, our community, that I began doing this way back a number of years ago. But it all begins with a thought. And the book of Proverbs, I always think is beautiful. As you think, so you shall be. And it's so true. And even Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, you know, those people who go around the global circuits today talking about psychology, neurology. I'm listening to Andrew Huberman at the moment, who's a professor from Stanford University, who talks a lot about neuroscience. And it's exactly the same. He talks about it with a bit more depth. So thinking is a big part of our lives, and if we don't think positively and we don't have a vision to drive towards, you can find yourself having those negative thoughts and those negative considerations which just really burn inside of you. So thinking and how you think and being conscious of where ultimately these things end up in your emotional condition is really really important. So family aren't talking to me in the UK, but that's all right. I guess you've just got to be accepting of the fact that if you've made a decision and you've decided to go a direction in your life and it's not one that is necessarily one they're expecting, you have to be ready to live a period of your life excluded, and that's probably the best word. So all of my direct family have pushed me aside and excluded me, but that's okay. I think you've got to come at this from unconditional love, and you've got to believe some way down the track, and time is a healer, that once they start thinking about it in the right way, things will come back together again. But for the community, the lesson is I don't think you should be surprised that these things occur. I think you celebrate more the fact, you know, I've got my gorgeous family in Belgium who've been nothing but very, very supportive of me, and fabulous friends in Canada. So I feel cosseted by them, and it just gives you the energy to go on. And you know, they talk about the good things. You need the energy, and the energy is your adrenaline, and epinephrine that is a form of adrenaline that is generated neurologically. So you need those things going to give you the stimulus to get out of your bed at the right time in the morning, and to try and progress with the general orientation that you want to travel in. And then you've got to be kind to yourself, you know, with and it's self-induced serotonin releases, which just makes you feel good about yourself. And loving yourself is really important. And the other one is dopamine, and people misrepresent dopamine. Dopamine is not a shot when you achieve something. Dopamine is something you should be giving yourself when you're pursuing your objectives and your goals, because you ultimately never get there. So self-regulation around just taking a moment and celebrate and allow the dopamine to flow, to allow the serotonin to flow in your body. When you achieve something, I mean, even making your bed in the morning when you can have those difficult days is something done that takes you in your general path of travel. So why not stand back and say, God, I've done it. I've made my bed. I could have lay in bed for hours and covered my head with the duvet, but you didn't. You got up. So, it's a self-regulated shot of dopamine that just keeps you going. And I think things like that are really important for our community to understand, because there are many reasons why you wouldn't get out of bed, why you wouldn't go to work, and so on and so forth. So it's something I think we don't do enough of, just being aware of what's going on neurologically in your head with all of the challenges that we face. So we've talked about the family. So I think the main thing I want to get on to is, since I left Canada in August, I beg your pardon. I actually had my last consultation with my endocrinologist in April of this year. For reasons I thought I would be leaving Canada much sooner than I did, and I just cancelled down all of my medical insurance. So my endocrinologist was gorgeous enough to keep all of my estradiol valerate oil supply going for a whole year. Can you believe that? A whole year coming out of New Brunswick in Canada, because she knows as well as I do what I'm coming back to in Scotland. And I think I told you in the last update, Penchant Social update, that I was now taking progesterone for breast development. So I'll give you an update on that in a moment. So I now, I left Canada, and I left Canada in a glorious place, but I left in April and went to Belgium, and I was just shocked at how fabulous the Belgian medical system is with respect to transgender provision, transgender surgery, and I don't think I've had the chance to share with you a pre-consultation I had via Zoom with the health clinic in Edinburgh, and I had this, it was in June, I think it was, and I broke down. In fact, I was in tears in the consultation itself, because I thought, my God, I think I'm coming back to a third world country. Honestly, that's how it felt to me, a third world country. You can't have this, we don't do that. It really set me back on my heels, but I've slowly kind of simply said, well, it is what it is, but that's not stopping me. I'm now 62 years of age. I need, irrespective of what a country's health and social system is, I've got to move on. I don't know how long I've got left on in this body on God's earth. So it's I have things I need to get on and do. If they can help me, fabulous. If they can't, I'll find my own way. So I have coming up next week the very first Scotland to Scotland, if you like, engagement. Again, it's a Zoom call because of the pandemic, but it's the first chance I'll have really to say, hey, I'm back, I'm in your system of care now. I'm really looking for you to step up, and at the age of 62, and I'll be quite frank with you in some of my descriptions in just a moment around the challenges I face, and I look to the health system here in Scotland to do something for me. But you know, I've got myself prepared for what the answers could be, and I'll share some of those things for me. So let me just talk about where I am at the moment with my medication, because I think those of you who have followed me on Penchant Social, you'll understand that, you know, I've been very progressive, and my endocrinologist in Canada, in Halifax, has been fabulous with me. So I came off patches, and I did not want to take oral tablets for the simple reason you lose 90% of the effect in your liver. So I always said at 62, I don't have time to be hanging around. I need to get quick development. So I've been injecting now for near on a year. And we had the very weird experience of my estrogen levels going up to a factor of 11,000, which is just absolutely unheard of. Settled down at around the 3,000 mark, but they still only should be at about the 1,000 mark. And they can have all sorts of effects on other chemical balances in your body. So it's really important, but I've always felt full of joy. So it's never been something that's bothered me. So I've kind of gone along with it and thought at the end of the day, listen, I'm on the fast track route to have the body and the appendages, the breasts that I want to have. So I let that go, and of course I did a lot of study into breast development, and uncovered the Tanner range, Tanner 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And transgender girls typically get to Tanner 2 and 3, so they're never really full and rounded as you perhaps would like them to have. We moved to take or add to my treatment progesterone, 100 ml of progesterone each day. And I have to confess, I'm now 2 years into my medication, and I'm struggling to see the things I had hoped by this point I would be seeing, but so I'm on very progressive dosages of testosterone, progressive dosages of estrogen, and now I'm on progesterone. But I think it's got to do with your body and how your body is ready and willing to go with these things. And going back to neurology, neuroplasticity is always there. You can always change your synaptic connections, your neural ways. You can change those up to the day you die. And I have to believe it's the same with the body, but equally you have to be accepting of the fact the older you get, the harder it's going to be. But it doesn't stop me being impatient, and I'm sure you girls out there who are also later in their years feel pretty much the same. So looking forward to the session next week, what am I going to be talking about? What's changed in my life? Well, my cousin's a tease, and she always used to drive me past a clinic each morning. We went out together, and it was a breast augmentation clinic. And I always said I would never do it. I would never do it. But I have to confess, I have seriously changed my mind, and I'm now absolutely of the opinion, of the view, I want breast augmentation, and I will get it done next year. It's about £3,000 to £8,000 here in the UK to get it done. So I'll be talking about that next week. I'll be talking about, and the reason that will bring that on is I just don't think the progesterone is doing anything for me. I've been on it now for 8 months, and you might say, girl, you've got to give it more time, but I don't have it. If you're 20 or 30 and you've got a little while in which to experiment with it, I know, I get it. You'll persist, but I just generally feel I can't. I really do need to realize myself sooner rather than later. So that's one decision I've made. Whether I stay on progesterone or not, I probably will not, because it's not prescribed here in Scotland, which again, it's another one of those can you believe it moments. I have to say as well, I couldn't even get the syringes, the needles and the syringes I needed to inject the estrogen oil into my muscle in my thighs. I mean, if it hadn't have been for the gorgeous help by one of the pharmacy staff in the pharmacy I was going to, I'd be importing them from Canada, if that's allowed, to bring in needles. But I was all set, and the Fords in New Brunswick were ready to ship them out to me, and it's just gorgeous. Things like that just fill you with so much joy that people are at the right heart and of the right mind and are ready to help you. But anyway, through the very, very kind consideration of one of the pharmacy staff, I managed to locate all of the right needles and the syringes to inject appropriately. So one thing done and out of the way. Then we move on really to voice. I think I am fortunate in that regard. I believe in the hospital here at Livingston there is a voice clinic. So hopefully over the course of the next few recordings of Penchant Social, you'll begin to notice a difference in my tones. I'm certainly hoping so, but I have to confess I'm not that bothered anymore. It's not top of my list, and I get by, and I think in the main people are accepting. I'm beyond the point of saying too much on the telephone now if somebody addresses me in the masculine sense. I will say I'm a transgender woman, if you wouldn't mind referring to me as Miss. It's funny, isn't it? Yes, so that voice is probably something that'll get taken care of quite quickly. What we're going to do with the estradiol valerate oil, I think I'm just going to keep importing it in from Canada and until I can get my thinking around an alternative. So that's kind of okay for a year, and I just feel so confident in my endocrinologist in Canada. I could probably get it for another year. I'm paying full cost anyway for it, so it's not as if it's coming off insurance or coming off the national health budget in Canada. It's coming out of my budget, which is not quite as large. So now we get down to the real issue here, and that is, and I'll share some of the things with you because, let me go back a second before I get into that last point. I'm reconciled to the fact that I'm probably going to have to pay for the breast augmentation myself. And why? Research and reading I've done, I just can't believe what I've uncovered, and that is that in Scotland, I think it's by absolute exception that a transgender male to female has the National Health Service fund breast augmentation. And you question it because if you're going the other way, if you're going female to male, that your breast reduction will be paid for by the state. Or if you're a normal woman wanting breast surgery, it'll be paid for by the state. But if you're a transgender woman, male, female, it's most irregular that would be funded. So again, it's one of those things, I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to give my energy up to that. And if I have to pay for that myself, that's what I will do. Which brings me back, to where I was a little moment ago, and that was the real big issue now. After 2 years of hormone replacement therapy, I am just so needing. I'm not going to use the word anxious. I'm not anxious, and neither am I upset or any of those in any of those emotional states. I just need to get this surgery done. And you know, I've got my arguments all lined up, and some of the things I'm going to share them with you. Some of them are a little bit personal, but I think, you know, let's get it out there and just let people realize. So after 2 years of very heavy testosterone reduction treatment, my genitals have shrunk significantly, but they're still not small enough to be invisible, and I just refuse to tuck the way some girls still do with tape and what have you. It's just so awful. But what that means is, you know, wearing tight-fitting clothing down there can expose what you carry around with you. And when I go to the gym, you know, and you're wearing leggings, stretch leggings, again, you're always conscious of the fact that you think people could be looking down there, and you're always checking yourself that everything is kind of holding in place. And that's just no way to live your life. And if you're out and about and you've got tight jeans on, tight trousers, again, you could be wearing leggings outside. There's always a look down every minute, or what seems every minute or 2 minutes, to just make sure that everything is just staying, you know, in your panties where you want them to stay, and it's just terrible. And you know, the one that really is most impersonal, and I do apologize in advance for sharing this, but when you tuck, you can find your foreskin getting in all sorts of weird shapes and configurations. And when you finally do have to go and relieve yourself in the bathroom, you know, you can end up making a right mess. And at 62 with a bladder which isn't as good as it used to be. For us older girls, it's just most unpleasant. It's most unpleasant, and then it comes down to finding a partner. You know, it's been a considerable period of time. That's all I'm going to say. Considerable period of time since I've had sex, and I just can't contemplate the idea of doing anything with the organ I have. But it also means as well, for me personally, relationships just become very, very difficult to contemplate, because whilst I say I'm authentic, I'm not authentic because down below is not right. So, you know, I'll just stop it there, because you've got to feel for the discomfort. So I am hoping upon hope that the clinician that I talk to next week understands at my age, and I keep saying my age because I think it's really important, that I'm not into queue jumping. I'm not going to try and push a girl out of a spot, you know, because she's 20 or 30 and I'm 62, but having waited this period of time to transition, having turned down the opportunity in 2001 because of wanting to look after my family until they were, you know, out of university and into work, I genuinely think I've done my time, and I think the state ought to help me sooner rather than later. So it'll be interesting to see how that conversation goes, and it is something I will come back to you and give you an update on once it's been had. I hope upon hope, not just for me, but I want to give hope to all of the other older girls in the community, that up here in Scotland there is some compassion and there is love in people's hearts to try and recognise the difficulties, the unique difficulties, I think, that an older woman can have in their process of transition. So I guess I'm going into this a little bit like a negotiation. Like, if I can, I'll have it all done on the state, but I just don't think that's going to happen. So I'm just reconciled to funding breast augmentation and hopefully the state paying for my gender reassignment surgery. But again, in that very emotional call I had in June, I was told I was going to have to wait 2 years, and it was a case of, in amongst all of the tears and the deep sobbing, look, how can you do that? How can you say to somebody who's 62, my father died in his late 50s. My mother, God bless her, is still around in her late 80s. So, I'd like to believe I've got a few years to go, but I want them to be enjoyable years in terms of all those things I've spoken about. So, yeah, it's going to be a negotiation, I think, and I will let you know how it goes. I'm going into this with hope and with compassion. I'm going in with fear or doubt. I think that would just get the wrong outcome altogether. So that's where we are with respect to what's going to happen next week. So I think that's my update at the moment. Christmas is coming, as you all know. I've got my first little token gesture for Christmas, my poinsettias. So I love those. So beginning to get into the festive spirit, started to write cards, and again, it's a beautiful thing to do. We're talking about serotonin and the release of serotonin as a subconscious thing in your body. Gratitude and the expression of gratitude is scientifically proven now. It's not woo-woo. Nothing I tell you now is woo-woo, all right? So be sure of that. That just the expression of gratitude, whether you do that quietly on your own or in a card, thank you for making my year so fabulous and fantastic. All of those things just help you along. So giving and giving thanks and giving expressions of gratitude is better than receiving them, and it just helps you release serotonin, and you get to benefit from that. So keep that in mind as Christmas approaches. Don't delay on writing your cards. Just do that for yourself, if for nothing else. The people that receive them will be absolutely delighted. But, you writing them, you posting them, little shots of serotonin, little shots of dopamine along the way, keep a girl going, all right? So on that, I just say God bless, and I'll probably be back next week or the week after with an update following my consultation. So until next time, I wave bye-bye and wish you all a gorgeous day. Bye-bye.